It started with the clink of a wine glass and a voice too sweet to be sincere. So still between jobs, huh? My sister Veronica smiled across the table like she hadn't just thrown a knife wrapped in silk. Her lipstick was a perfect deep rose, the kind of color I used to steal from her vanity drawer in high school. Now, it only made her teeth look sharper. The dining room, candlelit and warm with roasted rosemary chicken and clove-scented wine, suddenly felt colder than the night air outside. A dozen eyes turned to me, some sympathetic, some curious, most politely amused. I forced a smile, still figuring things out. Veronica laughed, tossing her hair like she was in one of those perfume commercials. Well, we can't all land at the top, right? Dad chuckled, low and awkward. Mom looked down at her plate, pretending the mashed potatoes were suddenly very interesting. Even Aunt Claire, who usually rushed to defend the underdog, offered only a soft hum of disapproval and took another sip of her wine. That's how it always was. They never said anything too cruel, just enough to sting in public and pretend. It was playful. I was the odd one out, always had been. The girl who doodled sketches instead of solving equations. The one who got a liberal arts degree instead of law or finance. The one who didn't go to the gym, didn't have a fiancé, didn't post filtered brunches or engagement rings, and now? Apparently the one with no job. What they didn't know was that I had left a six-figure position in tech marketing 3 months ago. Not because I was lazy or incapable, but because every morning I woke up dreading the fake smiles, the toxic boss, the feeling of selling pieces of myself in exchange for a paycheck and praise that never felt earned. They wouldn't understand. They never had. Veronica launched into a story about her recent work trip to Milan. The firm flew us first class. They treat us like royalty. She glanced at me briefly. But I guess when you're not working, even a middle seat sounds good. Laughter again. Tight, brittle, obligatory. I focused on the glass in front of me, tracing my finger around the rim. The wine was red, almost too red, and reminded me of that worn velvet chair in Grandma's old house. The one where I used to curl up and read books no one else touched. I missed that silence. Do you remember that time she tried to start a fashion blog? Veronica added suddenly, looking at my cousin and rolling her eyes. She had, 7 followers. That one stung. That blog had meant everything to me once. I had stayed up nights building it, pouring myself into styling thrift store clothes and photographing them in alleyways and coffee shops with self-timer shots. It didn't get far, but it had been mine, real, alive. Actually, I said softly, I'm working on something new. Oh, Veronica raised a brow, theatrically surprised. Do tell. But her tone wasn't curiosity, it was bait. A trap, a chance to spin whatever I said into her next punchline. I swallowed and shook my head. It's nothing yet, just early stage stuff. She snorted. Translation, jobless. I excused myself then, quietly, as they erupted again in laughter, the kind of laughter that made you want to shrink into wallpaper and disappear. I walked out into the cold evening. My coat still draped over the back of the dining chair. The night bit at my arms, but I didn't care. My heels clicked against the stone path leading to the driveway, each step sharper than the last. My heart thudded heavy in my chest. I got into my car, a hand-me-down Prius with a cracked dashboard, and sat in the driver's seat for a long time without turning the key. My breath fogged the window, and I stared at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. Not glamorous, not wealthy, not celebrated, but behind my tired eyes was something they didn't see, a fire. Quiet, flickering, fragile, but alive, I whispered. Aloud, just to myself, they think I'm nothing right now. That's fine. Let them think it. Then I started the car, hands trembling. There's a kind of quiet that settles over you when the world stops believing in you. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent. Like the final click of a door locking from the outside. That's how it felt after the dinner. No one reached out. Number. Apologies. Just group chat photos of my sister's new handbag, another wedding she attended, her latest courtroom win captioned another victory for the dream team. I watched the messages roll in like I was observing life from behind a Soundproof glass wall. I could have screamed. I wanted to shout, I'm building something. I'm not lazy, I'm not failing. But instead, I let the silence swallow me, because some things grow better in the dark. My apartment, a one-bedroom on the third floor of a building that smelled like boiled onions and bleach, became both my sanctuary and my prison. The living room doubled as my workspace. My laptop sat on a plastic folding table. A sticky note on the wall read, "Keep going, no one sees the seed before it sprouts." Most days started with cold coffee and ended with warm tears. I wore the same oversized hoodie for a week straight. I hadn't bought groceries in 2 weeks. Instant noodles, crackers, and a tub of peanut butter became my fuel. I sold old clothes online to pay my internet bill, but in that silence I built. The app was a simple idea at first. A platform connecting freelance creatives to ethical companies. No underbidding, no ghosting. A safe space for people like me, who had felt chewed up and thrown out by corporate life. I coded for 14 hours a day. When I wasn't building, I was cold emailing potential partners, pitching the concept under a pseudonym, pretending to be my own assistant when replying to inquiries. Every rejection hurt. Not a fit for us. Circle back in 6 months. Great idea, but we're not taking risks right now. Each one felt like a whisper confirming what Veronica had said. Jobless. Directionless, worthless, but I didn't stop. Some nights, I cried myself to sleep. Others, I stared at the ceiling and imagined what it would feel like to prove them all wrong. Not out of vengeance, but just to feel like I belonged somewhere. Anywhere. Meanwhile, Veronica's posts kept coming. Her newest courtroom photo. Her sun-kissed brunches. Her company's feature in a magazine, the same one I'd emailed and never heard back from. At family events. I stayed silent. When they asked what I'd been up to, I smiled and said, "Still figuring things out." And they nodded, satisfied, their pity cloaked in politeness. Good. Let them believe it, because, somewhere in that silence, I'd stopped needing their approval. I started to crave something else, proof of concept. Not just of the app. Of me. I took every snide comment, every condescending smile, every polite dismissal, and I folded it into my work. The coffee-stained hoodie became my armor. The folding table became my battlefield. The blinking cursor on my screen, my war drum. And every time I hit save, I reminded myself, "You're not failing. You're planting." I didn't need applause, I needed time. And maybe, just maybe, the right moment to rise. Success doesn't announce itself with fireworks, sometimes. It slips in like a sunrise, slow, quiet, and unmistakable once it fully arrives. It started with one investor. A woman named Daphne, a retired executive who read my pitch deck at 2 a.m. during a bout of insomnia. She replied within hours, asking for a call. I remember sitting on my apartment floor with my laptop propped on a stack of cookbooks, nervously adjusting the angle to hide the peeling paint behind me. By the time we ended the Zoom, she'd offered me seed funding. I stared at the screen after she logged off, blinking. The silence around me felt different this time. Not heavy, electric. That first check wasn't big, but it was enough. I updated my software, hired my first developer, a brilliant woman in Portland, who'd also left corporate life to freelance, and rebranded the site. New name, sleek interface. I stayed behind the curtain, still using an alias in every press release and client interaction. I wasn't ready for them to see me. Not yet. Then things snowballed. One investor turned into 3. Our client list tripled. A major online magazine ran a glowing review of the platform under the headline, "The future of ethical freelancing is here." My inbox flooded. People wanted to feature us, fund us, join us. And yet my phone never buzzed with a single text from my family. They hadn't connected the dots. My startup had a new name, a fresh look, a brand voice that was polished and professional. I scrubbed any trace of myself from the website. The photos were stock. The bio was written in third person. The contact email was an assistant I'd hired off Upwork, Veronica. Meanwhile, was busy posting her firm's latest legal victories. In one photo, she stood beside a group of corporate lawyers shaking hands with a client. The kind of client I'd just signed to our platform. I laughed to myself when I saw it. Not bitter, just amazed. All that distance. And now we were doing business with the same people. And then it happened. One Tuesday afternoon. My team and I joined a scheduled onboarding Zoom call with a new legal client, a medium-sized firm looking to modernize their creative department. I logged in early using my work alias, L, short for my initials. Camera off, mic muted. Just another name in a grid of faces, and there she was. Veronica. Hair pulled back, blazer. Sharp, voice crisp as ever. We're excited to see what your platform can do. I've heard good things. My developer led the presentation. I watched silently, pulse pounding. It wasn't just the irony, it was the surrealism. My sister, who mocked me for being between jobs, was now sitting through a slideshow of a product I had built with my bare hands. At one point, she glanced at her screen. A flicker of something, recognition, confusion, passed across her face. Then the camera glitched and cut to black. She never saw me, and I didn't unmute, didn't speak, didn't reveal a thing. Instead, I sat back in my chair and smiled. Not with smugness, but with something deeper. A quiet satisfaction. A seed sprouting through the dirt, unseen but unstoppable. Not yet. They still thought I was jobless. They still thought I was behind. But they had never looked behind the curtain. And when they finally did, I wanted the reveal to matter. The invitation came on a Thursday. An embossed envelope, thick and cream-colored, slid through my mail slot and landed on the floor like it knew it didn't belong with the bills and flyers. I stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. The logo at the top was unmistakable, the annual Tech X Legal Gala. And below that, in elegant serif typeface, your company has been nominated for the Emerging Innovation Award. My heart stopped. I read the letter twice. Then again, I knew the event well. It was co-hosted by several major law firms, including the one Veronica worked for. The kind of night where everyone who thought they were someone showed up in silk gowns and sharp tuxedos, drank champagne, and snapped selfies in front of branded step dash and dash repeats. It wasn't my scene. I hated galas, hated small talk, hated tight dresses and forced smiles, but this wasn't about them. It was about me. About the nights I'd spent alone in my apartment, eating stale crackers and wondering if I was delusional. About the moments I nearly quit. About the emails that started with, "Unfortunately," and ended with, "We wish you luck." About the silence after every family dinner that made me feel like I was shouting into a canyon no one heard. I texted my Q, "Jess, we're going to the gala." She replied with a single emoji. That Saturday, I sat in a salon chair as a stylist pinned back pieces of my hair with practiced hands. For once, I didn't look at my reflection with doubt. The woman in the mirror looked calm, grounded, not flashy. Just ready? I chose a navy blue dress. Simple, sleek, nothing screaming for attention. I didn't want to be the loudest in the room. I just wanted to finally belong in it. As we arrived, flashes went off near the entrance. Journalists hovered near the front doors, snapping photos and greeting board members like celebrities. I stayed close to Jess, who looked like she'd stepped off a Vogue cover in a tailored suit and gold heels. No one looked at me. No one recognized me. And that was exactly the point. Inside, chandeliers glittered above polished marble floors. Waiters floated by with trays of sparkling water and basil-infused cocktails. The hum of money and ambition filled the room. Conversations about quarterly growth, blockchain compliance, and who just made partner. I spotted Veronica before she saw me. She stood by the bar, laughing in that too loud way that always made heads turn. Her dress was red, sharp, and calculated, her smile flawless. She was surrounded by colleagues, each of them eager to sip from her spotlight. I looked away. I wasn't here to make a scene. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to witness what growth looked like in the full light of day. When the MC took the stage, the room hushed. "Tonight," he began, "we're proud to celebrate not only legal excellence, but the innovators who are changing how business and law intersect. We're thrilled to announce a new, groundbreaking partnership." I sipped my drink, half listening, between Maven Works and none other than Strickland and Blythe, a collaboration that's been quietly unfolding behind the scenes. and is now official as of this month. Heads turned, I saw Veronica's brow furrow. She looked around, curious, confused. And now, the MC continued, please welcome the visionary founder and CEO of Maven Works, L. March. The room applauded. Veronica's face went blank. I stepped forward, and for the first time they saw me. The ballroom lights softened to a warm gold, casting long shadows on the velvet-draped walls. Glasses clinked as people leaned in, sensing something was about to happen. The hush before. The crown is placed. Before the tide shifts, the MC stepped back, replaced by a tall man in a navy three-piece suit. He adjusted the mic with the ease of someone used to owning a room, Veronica's boss. I recognized him from magazine profiles and corporate bios. A legal juggernaut. The kind of man who'd shaken hands with senators and settled billion-dollar cases over afternoon espresso. And now he was standing at the center of the room, smiling as though he were about to introduce royalty. We've partnered with a number of startups over the years, he began, his voice smooth, commanding. But this one stands out. Not just for what they've built, though that's impressive enough, but for how they built it. He paused, scanning the room. I stood near the edge of the crowd, half-shadowed beneath a crystal chandelier. My heart thudded softly in my chest, but my hands were still. There was no shaking. No fear, just the sensation that a door was finally swinging open. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, it's my honor to introduce the CEO and founder of Maven Works, Miss Leah March. The name hit the room like thunder muffled under velvet. Veronica blinked. Her smile faltered, not dramatically. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but I saw it. A tiny twitch in her cheek. The way her fingers stilled around the stem of her wine glass. I stepped into the light. Applause rose around me like a slow tide coming to shore. Some stood, some turned in their seats with surprise. A few already had their phones raised, snapping photos. I walked past Jess, who gave me a proud, tight nod. I walked past Veronica, who stared like she was seeing a ghost she thought she'd buried years ago, and I stepped onto the stage. The spotlight was warm. I adjusted the mic, not out of nerves but intention. I had dreamed of this moment, not to gloat, not to humiliate, but to reclaim something they had tried to bury under labels like unemployed, unremarkable, unworthy. Thank you, I began, my voice calm, clear. I know this is the part where I'm supposed to rattle off numbers and projections, but that's not the story I want to tell. I let the silence breathe for a moment. A few years ago, I left a job that looked great on paper and felt like slow death in real life. I didn't leave with a plan. I left with a threadbare savings account and a voice in my head that said, build something better. A few heads nodded. Others leaned in. I started this company alone, at a plastic table in a studio apartment that didn't always have hot water. I was called reckless, unrealistic, dramatic. And yes, jobless. I didn't look at Veronica, but I felt her, the tension, the shame she couldn't yet name, the way her story was shifting beneath her feet. But the truth is, success doesn't always look loud in the beginning. Sometimes it just looks like resilience. I paused. Let the words hang. I didn't build Maven to prove anyone wrong. I built it because I believed there was a better way to connect people with purpose. And tonight, being here, not in spite of the quiet start, but because of it, is an honor I carry with deep gratitude. The applause was real, warm, not polite, but sincere. I stepped back from the mic. The boss shook my hand. Someone took a photo. A young associate beamed at me like I was a superhero, but the only face I searched for was hers. Veronica. She stood at the back now, her wine untouched, her eyes locked on mine across the sea of suits and silk and clapping hands. And in that moment, I didn't feel like the girl who once cried in parking lots after family dinners. I felt like a woman who had rewritten her story. Without needing her permission, without needing her applause. Just mine. The applause faded, as applause always does, after the speeches. The room returned to its elegant rhythm, clinking glasses, murmured networking, air kisses over shoulders. A string quartet played something delicate near the floral archway, and servers moved like shadows with trays of chilled dessert spoons. I stepped down from the stage and let the chaos swirl past me. People nodded, shook my hand, asked for a business card. I offered a soft smile, gave brief answers, let Jess handle the details. I wasn't there to be impressive anymore. I already was. Then I saw her, Veronica, standing at the edge of the ballroom near the bar. Alone. She looked smaller than usual. Her posture wasn't as stiff, her jaw not as sharp. Her red dress, which had once commanded attention, now just looked loud. A bit out of place. Like the kind of costume someone wore when they still needed to be noticed. She spotted me and moved toward me quickly, almost hesitantly. "Leah," she said, voice a little too breathy. "Wait," I stopped. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, blinking rapidly like she was trying to rewrite the script in real time. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" she asked finally, a tremble in her voice she couldn't quite mask. "Why didn't you say anything about all of this?" I looked at her for a long moment, not with anger, not even with pride. "Just clarity, because," I said gently, "you never asked." Her lips parted, but no words came. For once, Veronica, the woman who always had something clever, polished, biting to say, was silent, behind her. I saw her boss glance over, then nod at me with the kind of approval Veronica had probably worked years to earn. I offered a polite nod back. I didn't need his praise, but I accepted it. My phone buzzed in my clutch, then buzzed again. And again I pulled it out. "Mom, Leah, I'm so sorry. You were amazing, Dad. Why didn't you tell us?" "We're proud of you, Aunt Claire. Just saw the speech. Is this why you've been so quiet?" "Family group chat. CEO Queen. You've got to come to dinner next week." I turned the phone over and let the screen go dark. Let them have their epiphany. Let them catch up. I didn't need it anymore. The truth was, the real victory wasn't what happened on that stage. It wasn't the applause or the partnership or the title on the plaque I'd been handed. It was the 3 a.m. nights when I wanted to quit but didn't, the ramen-stained hoodie in the folding chair, the moments I sat alone, wondering if I was foolish or just early. It was building something, not to show off, not to spite anyone, but because I believed in it. Because I believed in me. Veronica stood there still, waiting for something more. But I didn't owe her a performance. So I just said, "Have a good night," and walked away. I stepped out of the hotel and onto the quiet street. The gala noise dimmed behind the heavy glass doors. A breeze tugged at the hem of my coat. City. Lights glittered like tiny promises. I didn't call a car. I didn't text anyone. I just walked out alone. Peaceful. Not needing an audience. Not needing to prove anything. For the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Some stories don't end with a dramatic confrontation or perfectly timed apology. Some just settle, like dust after a storm, quiet, soft, final. After the gala, life didn't suddenly shift into a fairy tale. I didn't become a millionaire overnight. My inbox stayed full, my days packed with meetings. And the codebase still broke at the worst possible times, but I woke up each morning a little lighter, because I knew who I was now, and more importantly, who I wasn't. I wasn't the girl they pitied at dinner tables. I wasn't the failure behind the quiet smiles and cheap shoes. I wasn't jobless. I was building, and I had built something real. A few weeks after the gala, my mom called again. I let it go to voicemail. Not out of anger, just preservation. I needed space. Still do. My family meant well in their own distorted way. They just didn't know how to hold space for the kind of person I was becoming. I wasn't Veronica, polished, predictable, familiar. I wasn't someone they could measure with degrees and designer bags. I was messy and brave and invisible for a long time. And maybe they loved me, but they didn't see me. Now that they finally do, I still keep my distance, not to punish, but to protect. Because peace, real peace, isn't loud or glamorous. It's choosing the version of yourself you fought like hell to become, and refusing to let anyone shrink her again. These days, I spend my time mentoring other women in tech. They remind me so much of myself, scared, brilliant, underestimated. Girls who've been told they're too soft or too loud or too quiet to lead. I sit across from them at tiny coffee shops or log into Zooms from different time zones and say what I once needed someone to tell me. You are not behind. You are just building. I watch their eyes light up when they talk about their projects. I recognize the hunger, the doubt, the fire, and I always tell them, don't wait for permission to grow. They smile like they believe me. And I hope they do. Sometimes I think back to those early days. The ramen, the cracked walls, the rejection emails with polite indifference. I remember the ache in my chest after that family dinner, how the cold outside felt kinder than the warmth at that table. And I remember what it taught me. Sometimes your biggest growth happens when no one's clapping. Sometimes your greatest win is choosing you quietly, consistently, every single day. The last time I saw Veronica was at a legal seminar where she was speaking on a panel. We passed each other in the hallway. She smiled, almost shyly. I nodded. She didn't bring up the gala. I didn't bring up the past. We just stood there, two grown women with very different paths, connected by blood and a long history of misunderstandings, and I realized I didn't need her to say sorry. I didn't need anyone to, because the truth was, I had already forgiven them, and I had already moved on. Now, when I sit in my quiet apartment, a nicer one, with hardwood floors and big windows that catch the morning light, I feel a peace I never used to believe was possible. Not the peace that comes from applause or success, but the kind that comes from building something with your own two hands. And knowing it was enough. And if I could say one thing to the girl I used to be, the one crying over her laptop with a heart full of doubt, it would be this. They called you jobless, but you were never jobless. You were just building.
And
as I look out over the city skyline glittering, alive, I remember that night at the gala, the lights, the stage. The moment they finally said my name. My sister told everyone I was jobless. That night, her boss called me CEO. But the truth is, I became someone I could be proud of. And that matters more than anyone's title ever could.